Hey there, my friends, and welcome to another episode of John Henry's book reviews, even though I don't call it that. Anyway, so today we're going to talk about Godtalk by Neale Donald Walsch. And it's part of a Common Sentient series, which is by Sacred Stories Publishing. Anyway, so Neale Donald Walsch has put out lots of books. I forget the number. Have been translated a lot. He's really prolific and also a very noteworthy figure in the spiritual literature world. What's the genre? I don't know, spirituality or something like that. So this is a newer book of his, published date looks like 2023, copyright, so it might have been published 2024. Anyway, so I wouldn't have chosen this and read it myself. My wife Yoko gave it to me as a gift because she's in a conversation book club centered around Neale Donald Walsch writings. I became aware of Walsch, I don't know, 15 years ago or something, through a spiritual cinema circle. And I admire him. I've seen interviews with him. I kind of know what he's about. And but just never felt compelled to read his books. But because of Yoko, I've felt she bought two of them for me. So I basically read most of one of them. Then we gave that to a friend. And I enjoyed that a lot. Now I'm reading this. I just finished this. It's called Godtalk with the subtitle Experiences of Humanity's Connection with a Higher Power. So if you never read any of his books before, then you'll get a taste of what he's about. And if you have read his books before, I imagine this isn't going to be a heck of a lot different. And if you've never even read any sort of out-of-the-box spiritual books at all, then this might be pretty eye-opening. So for me, I've been reading books of this sort of type for quite a while, so it just felt, I won't say boring, it was inspiring. There were a couple of new thoughts that perspectives I hadn't really considered before, but it wasn't exciting for me to read. So I say that as someone who's been on a spiritual seeking journey for many years. I don't know how to say how many, but well over a decade, actively seeking spiritually. And I try not to say this with ego. This is just me speaking, and this is John, the human being with a point of view and an opinion, talking. So what is it about? So in there's three sections, so it's divided up nicely, very easy to understand. The first one is Understanding Godtalk. Basically explaining how he began to talk with God in the 90s, and then can anyone talk with God? Of course, the answer is yes, and why should we talk with God? Is God even listening? And what are the ways that God speaks to you? So, he gets into all that. And it can come off as egotistical or something, the way he writes, because he's kind of saying like how powerful his own book is. But if you can put that aside and just feel like, oh, maybe it is as powerful as he says, and just take it on, I found no harm in embracing it fully. It is encouraging and inspiring. And in my own personal journey, I don't exactly talk with God so often as I talk with my higher self or my guide, Washesh. I channel a guide, Washesh. But it's really not different than talking to God, except maybe God is more like the source and has less of a personal perspective, perhaps. I'm not sure. But it seems like the same type of thing that I do already. Gets the same type of results. You know, the main thing is to not live in fear, in lack, in guilt, in shame, and the lower emotions, and to really expand your life to all the possibilities it could, you can conceive of and beyond. And it's funny. I do like his perspective. And in the other book I read, Conversations with God, like part 2, I forget the name of it. He says that instead of the 10 commandments, he gave us like the 10 illusions. And he discusses all these sort of ideas that we got stuck in our head that aren't true, and then what those 10 truths actually are. And a lot of it kind of really just like destroys some of the, what I would call religious dogma that was stuck in my head anyway, and made me laugh. Like for example, the idea that God does not judge us. I always knew that, instinctively. How could this being, this entity that is all powerful, why would he or it waste its time judging this one puny aspect of its creation? So silly. But to hear that it's not that God would judge, it's God is just infinitely offering love to explore and play in its creation. And you could do that with a sense of having responsibility, a sense of having consequences with one action. It's all playing within this creation, but the unconditional love is just always there. And you can co-create with the Creator when you decide to be bold enough to establish a connection and have a dialogue. It's kind of what it's about. And so then part 2 is experience of humanity's connections to a higher power. So this is other people's experience. It'll be like 2 or 3 pages or something, and they'll say when they were kind of in a tough moment, and then there was a sign from God, and there was a sort of an awakening, and then Neale gives a comment on each one of these stories, and there's several of them. And then the third part of the book is about putting it together. So tools on opening your own communication with God, strike while the iron is hot. Now let's talk about God. Let's talk about waking up. So at the end, he gives you some ideas how you could start this conversation with God if you haven't been doing it ever, if it's new to you. And also that he recommends that we talk about God more, and in a way that's very just inclusive, just not like judging anyone's perspective on God, but just saying that, hey, I have a connection with God and with Source, and it lights up my life and helps me to see myself and everyone else, and that we're all mirrors of each other and we're all co-creators, and just to talk about it is a bold thing, in a non-judgmental but like really loving way. How do we include people everyone in our discussions about God without being divisive? Now, of course, the word God itself could be a problem, so you could use other words, like I like to use higher power or Source, the Creator. It's not that I'm denying its existence, but I know that language itself can be divisive, so I don't want to get stuck in language problems, because I'm more interested in connecting with beings in a peaceful, harmonious way. All right, that's my take on Godtalk. Do I recommend it? It depends. He's very basic, sort of matter-of-fact, blue-collar, ordinary person type of language. When I say blue-collar, I just mean nothing like scientific, nothing too brainy or like theoretical. It's just, he just talks to you like common man. So if you like that, it works. And then the experiences are from pretty ordinary people that had experiences with the divine, and then he gives you some ideas about it. So, not my favorite type of reading, but well done. And he's got so many books, and they're all, as far as I know, similar vein. And I appreciate his contribution to this field and making this idea of talking with God, it kind of in a Christian context, because that's where he comes from. But he's not promoting Christianity or anything like that. But he comes from that sort of world, and just normalizing it. I like that. I appreciate him. So anyway, Godtalk, Neale Donald Walsch. Check it out if you're so inclined, or any of his other books, Conversations with God series and stuff like that. All right, until next time, keep on reading and enjoying yourself.